Welcome to BBC News, broadcasting at home and around the globe. I'm Daniela Ritorto. Our top stories. One of the highest profile prisoners in Russia has been freed from jail. Mikhail Khodorkovsky had once been the richest man in Russia, the head of the country's largest oil company. He flew to Germany after President Putin announced that he was pardoning his old rival on humanitarian grounds. Our diplomatic correspondent Bridget Kendall reports. It's a story we've reported a lot on over the past few months. Now there are more revelations about the activities of the American and British spy agencies and a list of the people they placed under surveillance. Among those identified in the documents leaked once again by the former US intelligence contractor Edward Snowden include the German Chancellor, the Israeli Prime Minister and even aid agencies. Our security correspondent Gordon Carrera has more. South Sudan may be the newest country on the map, the southern half of what was Sudan. But it is, in the words of President Obama, standing on the precipice, on the brink of civil war. The United Nations has urged both sides to end the ethnic violence that has left hundreds of people dead. You're watching BBC News. Still to come. A widespread pattern of weaknesses and failures. That's one of the conclusions of two serious case reviews into how 7 young girls were groomed and sexually exploited in Rochdale over the past decade. All 17 agencies involved in the case that could have acted to prevent or predict a significant part of the abuse, including charities, social services and the police, failed. In a separate case, 5 men have been jailed for the prolonged abuse of another girl in Rochdale. Jeremy Cook reports. 2 former assistants to the celebrity chef Nigella Lawson have been cleared of spending huge amounts of her money without permission. Francesca and Elisabetta Grillo claimed that Nigella Lawson approved their high spending in return for their silence about her alleged habitual drug use. Following the verdict, Ms Lawson said her experience as a witness was deeply disturbing and she called for a reform of the court process. Louisa Baldini's report contains some flash photography.
The sisters contributed recipes and were acknowledged by Miss Lawson in several of her books. With the demise of their friendship and ensuing court case, what's not yet clear is what an American audience will make of this verdict.
Well, as we've been hearing, Nigella Lawson was very critical of the judicial process. Our legal affairs correspondent, Clive Coleman, explains that it's important to remember that she was a prosecution witness and not a defendant in this trial. Clive Coleman there. Well, it's 16 minutes past 1. This is BBC News. I'm Daniela Ritorto. Let's update the headlines. 2 former soldiers who threw petrol bombs at a mosque in Grimsby have both been jailed for 6 years. The attack took place just 4 days after Fusilier Rigby was killed, just one of the wider repercussions of the soldiers' horrific murder. June Kelly reports. The Spanish government has approved a proposal for new, tougher abortion laws. Under the bill, termination up to 14 weeks into a pregnancy would no longer be a right. Abortion would only be permissible in the case of rape or where there's a risk to the mother's health. Melanie Ruiz reports. Now, I'm sure I don't have to remind you, but there are just 4 days left to get your Christmas shopping done. And retailers are very much aware that the battle is on to persuade us to part with our cash. Now, researchers are expecting about £12 billion to be spent over the next few days. That's as much as we'd normally spend in 2 weeks. Online sales are predicted to be about 28% higher than this time last year. However, nearly 75% of the shops are already having sales, slightly less than 2012, but the discounts are bigger. Emma Simpson reports from London's busy West End. I'm happy to report that I've done all of mine. Well, if you've ever flown over the Alps and wished you could take a closer look, you're in luck. A French tourism company has installed a viewing platform that gives you the chance to quite literally step off the top of a mountain. It opens on Saturday, but it's definitely not for the faint-hearted, as Wendy Urquhart explains. It is amazing, but it does make me quite queasy. Now for some more extraordinary pictures from the United States this time. This is CCTV video from a bus in Seattle. Thanks for watching BBC News. Nina Rich is here next with the weather. You're watching BBC News. I'm Daniela Ritorto. These are the latest headlines. All historic theatres in London's West End were back in business last night after carrying out a series of safety checks. It follows the collapse of part of the ceiling at the Apollo Theatre on Thursday night. More than 70 people were injured. 2 people remain in hospital. Robert Hall reports. Thanks for watching. There will be more news at 2 o'clock with Adnan Nawaz. But for now on BBC News, the Click Christmas Special.